the studio. Nick, you've first turned to papers in Ukraine.
Hi to you, Aurora. And yes, I went to the Ukraine papers in Ukrainian, and I saw this in Dane. The Day, it's the name of that paper in English, and we can see a picture of a young man distraught, covering his eyes. The headline for that photo on the front page of the paper is a call for national peace, for a national peace agreement. Now, that paper, Aurora, has a website in English that people can go to directly, and when I did do that, it has one story focusing on what it calls the EU's sin of inaction. Now, that is a quote from the Polish MEP, Paweł Kowal, who's head of the European Parliament delegation to the EU-Ukraine Parliamentary Cooperation Committee. Now, he says it is too late for soft diplomacy in terms of the events in Ukraine. The EU should do concrete things, introduce measures such as speeding up the abolition of visas for Ukraine citizens. So the EU coming under heavy criticism, of course.
All right, another Ukrainian paper that people can go to for stories like that, but in English this time, it's the Kiev Post.
Yeah, we've been looking at the Kiev Post fairly regularly. This Friday, I saw this story in the Kiev Post headlined, Kiev takes a death holiday. Now, that's absolutely grim. It's not brilliant English, is it really? When I looked through the piece, I saw that what the message was that, in fact, the country is ground to a halt. In the capital, the metro is closed. There's a ghost town. You feel businesses are not open. What's happening is people are leaving the city, worrying about what could actually take place. And so their headline, a death holiday for the country.
All right, run us through the other international papers.
Well, The Guardian, its take on the Ukraine is perhaps one of the most striking front pages I've seen this Friday. Really incredible there. You can see Ukraine's bloodiest day with activists looking on to a row of protesters killed. Now, for some analysis, Aurora, I turned to the International New York Times comment pages, and they have a piece by Romano Prodi. Now, he is a former Italian Prime Minister, and he's a former EU Commission President. Now, he is saying that Ukraine as a country is a bridge between Eastern Europe and Western Europe. It should never be the object of geopolitical games. His message is that Yanukovych's government, after what we've seen, the carnage this week, really should be ready to stand down once order has been restored. So that's the take from what is a very established figure on the European Union scene.
Now, Nick, another country that's been rocked by mass protests, and that is Venezuela. Nationwide demonstrators are challenging Nicolas Maduro.
They are. He is, Nicolas Maduro is that choice of the late Hugo Chavez, isn't he? He's the person chosen to continue the Bolivarian revolution in the country. Now, as we've seen, there have been big protests there and similar scenes, not the intense violence. The number of dead in Venezuela is relatively low compared to Ukraine, about 6 at this point. Now, we see El Universal, the paper there, it too has an English language website, and I see that piece there about Enrique Capriles Radonsky. Now, who is he? He is the former candidate for the presidency against Maduro. He lost to Maduro. And he is saying that what this government is doing in Venezuela is engaging in a brutal repression. They are just a bunch of armed gangs. They should be dismantled. The whole tension in the country is down to Maduro. The take of the situation in Venezuela as far as the Buenos Aires Herald is slightly broader, as you would imagine. It's saying that there's a split throughout Latin America along ideological lines about the events in Venezuela. Left-leaning countries, left-led countries such as Ecuador and Bolivia are blaming US-funded right-wing activists. Reaction from the former Colombian president, Alvaro Uribe, who is on the right, is saying that what we're seeing in Venezuela is the dictatorship of the country going awry, going off the rails, and, of course, along the way ruining Venezuela's oil-based economy.
And finally, Nick, you've picked out a story about Saudi Arabia that's caught your eye.
Well, this is a piece in the Daily Mail, and it's about a Saudi man who punched his mum in the face and knocked her tooth out, which is already one thing. But under Saudi law, he gets very heavily punished indeed. Part of the punishment is that his the same tooth in his mouth will have to be removed. And that's all to do with Quranic law, of course, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, literally. And his punishment also includes 5 years in jail and 2,400 lashes. Those lashes will be given out at a rate of 40 every 10 days in a local market. So Saudi justice is rough justice.
All right, Nick, thank you very much for that. That was Nicholas Rushworth with all of today's International Press Review. And we're going to take a short break now, but don't go away because Focus is coming up in just a few moments. We'll travel to wind farms and hydroelectric plants in Spain. It's the first time green power is the country's #1 source of energy, but we'll find out why the industry is at risk. Also coming up in sports, a full roundup at the Sochi Olympic Games. Thank you for watching France 24.